The emergency lights cast red shadows across the command bridge of the Catharan flagship Peaceful Dawn. Commander Zethkar pressed his six-fingered hands against the control panel, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The Vorth swarm had broken through their final defensive line. "Sir, the outer colonies are gone," reported his communications officer, her voice shaking.
Jetra Prime, Veshan Station, the entire Kitharan belt, all silent. Zethkar closed his large, dark eyes for a moment.
In just 3 days, the Vorth had destroyed what the Kitharan Consortium had built over 800 years. 12 peaceful worlds, countless space stations, and nearly 2 billion lives, all consumed by the endless hunger of the swarm. The Kitharan were not warriors. They had evolved from gentle herbivores on a quiet world with no predators. Their greatest achievement was developing faster-than-light travel without ever firing a weapon in anger. They explored the galaxy, seeking knowledge and friendship, never imagining they would encounter something like the Vorth. "Commander," the tactical officer called out, "the swarm vessels are moving toward the homeworld. They'll be here in 6 hours. 6 hours. Zethkar looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all young, barely past their first molting. The older, more experienced officers had volunteered to stay behind on the evacuation ships, helping load civilians. Most of those ships were already gone, carrying refugees to distant worlds. But there weren't enough ships. There would never be enough ships. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," the communications officer announced. "It's Chancellor Yathara." The main screen flickered to life, showing the elderly leader of the Catharan government. Her usually pristine white robes were dirty and torn. Behind her, Zethkar could see smoke rising from the capital city. "Commander," she said, her voice tired but steady, "the evacuation is proceeding, but we estimate only 40% of the population will escape before the Vorth arrive. We need more time." "Chancellor, our fleet can't stop them," Zethkar replied. "We have 40 ships against their thousands. Our weapons barely scratch their biohulls." Chancellor Yathara nodded sadly. "I know, but perhaps someone else might help us." She gestured to someone off-screen and an aide appeared carrying a data tablet. "Our Xenology department has been studying the galactic communication networks. They've identified several spacefaring species that might be willing to offer assistance." "Assistance?" Zethkar asked. "You mean weapons? Military aid?" "No," the Chancellor said firmly. "We are not warriors, Commander. We will not become like the Vorth, but perhaps someone might offer sanctuary to our survivors, a place where our people can rebuild." The aide handed her the tablet and she read from it. "There's a species in the Sol system. The galactic database lists them as primitive but spacefaring. Their world designation is Sol 3. They appear to be carbon-based like us, though they evolved on a more challenging world." Zethkar frowned. "More challenging how?" "Higher gravity, more radiation, violent weather patterns. The database suggests they might be more adaptable than most species. They've survived several extinction events on their homeworld." "That sounds promising," Zethkar said. "If they're survivors themselves, they might understand our situation." Chancellor Yathara began typing on the tablet. "I'll compose a message. A request for sanctuary for peaceful refugees. We can offer our knowledge in exchange for a safe place to live." As she worked, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The tactical officer looked up from his station, his face pale. "Sir, Vorth scouts have entered the outer system. They're moving fast." "How long?" Zethkar asked. 4 hours, maybe less." Chancellor Yathara finished typing and looked up at the screen. "The message is ready. But Commander, there's something else. The database entry for this Sol 3 species is incomplete. It was last updated over 200 years ago. We don't know what they're like now." "We don't have a choice," Zethkar replied. "Send the message." The communications officer worked at her station for several minutes, routing the signal through the deep space relay network. "Message transmitted, sir. It should reach the Sol system in approximately 18 hours. "Too late for us," Chancellor Yathara said quietly, "but perhaps not too late for our children." The screen flickered and went dark as the surface transmitter was destroyed by Vorth advance forces. Zethkar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his crew. "All ships, this is Commander Zethkar. Begin final evacuation procedures. Load every civilian transport you can find. We'll hold the line as long as possible." His tactical officer looked up. "Sir, with respect, our ships won't last 10 minutes against the main swarm." "Then we'll make those 10 minutes count," Zethkar replied. "Every second we buy is another life that might escape." As the crew prepared for their final battle, The message raced through space toward a small blue-green world, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The message was carefully worded, explaining the peaceful nature of the Kitharan people and their desperate need for sanctuary. It included cultural data, technology offerings, and detailed maps of safe travel routes away from Vorth space. But the message had a problem. The galactic database was indeed out of date. Very out of date. The entry for Sol 3 was from an old survey mission that had observed the planet from a distance. It listed the dominant species as primitive tool users showing early signs of space exploration, and noted they had recently developed basic chemical propulsion. The database had no record of the great wars that followed. It didn't mention the rapid technological advancement driven by centuries of conflict. It had no data on the massive space fleets, the weapon systems that could crack planets, or the warrior culture that had emerged from endless struggles for survival. Most critically, the Universal Translator program that converted the Kitharan message into human languages was based on that same outdated database. It made several key translation errors, where the Kitharan wrote, "Sanctuary for peaceful refugees." The translator rendered it as military assistance for allies under attack, where they described fleeing from extinction. It became requesting immediate intervention. The tactical data they included about Vorth positions, meant to help potential allies avoid dangerous areas, was translated as enemy fleet locations and capabilities for strategic planning. When the message finally reached Earth, it arrived not as a plea for refugee status, but as a desperate call for military aid from a new ally facing annihilation, and it reached Earth at a very interesting time. Admiral Sarah Chen had just returned from the Proxima campaign, where her third colonial fleet had spent 8 months hunting down rogue mining robots that had been systematically strip mining asteroids and occasionally shooting at human ships. It had been frustrating work, fighting mindless machines with predictable tactics and no imagination. Her ships were loaded with Marines, spoiling for a real fight. Her crews were bored and restless. Her tactical officers were running combat simulations just to stay sharp. When the alien distress call came through, Admiral Chen read it 3 times before calling her senior staff to the briefing room. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "it appears we've just received our first genuine extraterrestrial contact, and they're asking for our help." Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive tactical display in the briefing room of the UES Retribution. Around the oval table sat her senior officers, all of them studying the alien transmission that had arrived 12 hours ago. The room buzzed with excited energy. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Captain Rodriguez, Chen's tactical advisor. "These Kitharan aliens are under attack by something called the Vorth Swarm. They're requesting immediate military intervention, and they've provided us with enemy fleet positions and tactical data." "That's correct," replied Dr. Kim, the fleet's xenolinguist who had been working non-stop to decode the message. "The translation algorithms are still processing some sections, but the core message is clear. They need help, and they need it fast." Chen nodded, studying the star charts the aliens had provided. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" Commander Park, the intelligence officer, pulled up a new display. "Based on their own data, they appear to have a small defensive fleet, 40 ships at most. They're massively outnumbered by these Vorth forces." "And what about the Vorth themselves?" Chen asked. "This is where it gets interesting," Park continued. "According to the Kitharan data, the Vorth use organic ships, some kind of biotechnology. They appear to be a hive mind species that consumes entire worlds. The tactical scans show thousands of vessels, but the power readings are inconsistent with our understanding of physics." Dr. Kim looked up from her tablet. "There's something else. The Kitharan keep referring to themselves as peaceful herbivores and mention they've never fired weapons in anger. I think we may be dealing with a completely pacifist species." Captain Rodriguez frowned. "Pacifists? Then how did they develop space travel without military applications?" "Different evolutionary path, perhaps," Dr. Kim suggested. "Their homeworld might have been much more peaceful than Earth. No major predators, no resource wars." Chen walked around the table, her mind racing. "So we have a peaceful alien species being attacked by a genocidal swarm, and they're asking us for military help because they can't defend themselves." "That's the situation as we understand it," Park confirmed. What's our fleet status? Chen asked. All ships operational, reported Captain Torres, the fleet's logistics officer. We've got 900 vessels ranging from destroyers to dreadnoughts. 40,000 Marines across the fleet, all of them veterans of the Proxima campaign. Ammunition stores are at 95% and morale is high. Chen smiled grimly. High morale might be an understatement. Half my crew has been complaining about being bored since we finished mopping up those mining robots. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, the Marine commander, nodded enthusiastically. My troops are ready, Admiral. 8 months of fighting predictable machines has them eager for a real challenge. A real challenge, Chen repeated, looking at the tactical data again. According to this information, we'd be facing a technologically advanced hive mind with thousands of ships. That's definitely a challenge. Dr. Kim cleared her throat. Admiral, there's something else to consider. This would be humanity's first contact with not one but 2 alien species. The cultural and scientific implications are enormous. Noted, Doctor, Chen replied. But right now people are dying. These Kitharans sent us detailed tactical information about enemy positions and specifically requested military intervention. We can worry about cultural exchanges after we've saved them from extinction. She turned to address the room. How long would it take to reach their space? Commander Park consulted his calculations. At maximum burn, approximately 48 hours to reach the outer edge of their territory. The main battle appears to be taking place around their homeworld, which would be another 6 hours beyond that. 54 hours total. Chen mused. Can we improve on that? Captain Torres checked his data. We could push the engines harder, but we'd risk mechanical failures. However, the newer ships could make it in 42 hours if we leave the older vessels behind. No, Chen said firmly. We go in together or we don't go at all. I'm not dividing my fleet in the face of an unknown enemy. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. Admiral, are we sure about this? We're talking about committing our entire fleet to a fight that's literally light years from any support. If things go badly, we could lose everything. Chen looked around the table at her officers. These were people she'd served with for years, through the corporate wars, the Martian Rebellion, and the Proxima campaign. They were the best humanity had to offer. Captain Rodriguez raises a valid point, she said. This is a risk. But look at the data these aliens provided. They've given us detailed intelligence about enemy fleet positions, ship capabilities, and tactical weaknesses. This isn't a blind jump into combat. They're asking for help from someone they believe can provide it. And, she continued, if we ignore this request and these Kytheran are wiped out, what message does that send to the galaxy? That humanity will stand by and watch genocide happen when we have the power to prevent it? Lieutenant Colonel Hayes spoke up. My Marines didn't sign up to let innocent people die when we could save them. Exactly, Chen agreed. We have the firepower, we have the personnel, and we have allies providing intelligence. This is what the fleet exists for. Dr. Kim raised her hand tentatively. Admiral, what if we're misunderstanding something? What if the translation is incomplete? Then we adapt, Chen replied. But the core message is clear enough. Peaceful species under attack, requesting military aid, enemy positions provided. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts. She moved to the central display and began highlighting systems on the star chart. Here's what we're going to do. Full fleet deployment, maximum speed. We'll drop out of FTL here at the edge of their system, assess the situation, and then engage based on what we find. Rules of engagement? Captain Rodriguez asked. Any vessel that fires on us or shows hostile intent gets destroyed, Chen replied without hesitation.
Any vessel attacking civilian or non-combatant targets gets destroyed.
We're not going in there to negotiate. We're going in to win. Commander Park looked concerned. Admiral, what if the Vorth try to communicate? What if they want to surrender? Chen's expression hardened. According to the Kitharan data, the Vorth have already destroyed entire worlds and billions of lives. If they want to surrender, they can do it after they've stopped shooting. She looked around the room one more time. Any other questions or concerns? Captain Torres raised his hand. What about supplies? We're looking at a potentially extended engagement far from home. We'll resupply from captured enemy vessels if necessary, Chen replied. The Kitharan data suggests the Vorth use bioships. Our science teams can figure out how to make them compatible with our systems. Dr. Kim looked alarmed. Admiral, we don't know anything about alien biology. Using their technology could be extremely dangerous. Doctor, we're heading into a war zone to fight genocidal aliens. Extremely dangerous is already on the menu. Chen's tone was calm but firm. We'll take proper precautions, but we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. She moved to the communication console. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Prepare for immediate departure. All crew to battle stations. We have aliens to save and enemies to destroy. As the fleet began preparations for departure, Chen remained in the briefing room, studying the alien data one more time. Something nagged at her about the Kithaeron message, but she couldn't put her finger on what. The translation seemed straightforward enough. Peaceful species under attack. Requesting military intervention, detailed tactical data provided. But there was something about the tone that seemed different than what she'd expect from a military request. She shook her head. Probably just cultural differences. Different species would naturally have different communication styles. The important thing was that they'd asked for help, and humanity was going to provide it. What Chen didn't know was that at that very moment, the real Kithaeron message was sitting in Earth's linguistic analysis computers, still being processed by translation algorithms that were trying to understand concepts that had no equivalent in human language. Concepts like requesting sanctuary and peaceful refugees. The Kithaeron had never expected anyone to respond to their distress call with military force. They were hoping someone might offer them a place to live. Commander Zethkar floated in his command chair aboard the damaged Peaceful Dawn, watching the final moments of his homeworld through the ship's sensors. The Vorth had arrived exactly as predicted, their massive bioships darkening the sky above Kythera Prime like a living storm cloud. "Sir?" his communications officer reported, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "The last civilian transport has cleared the atmosphere. That's all we could save." Zethkar nodded sadly. Out of 2 billion Kithaeron on the homeworld, they had managed to evacuate perhaps 60 million. The mathematics of extinction were brutally simple. His small fleet had bought time by sacrificing themselves ship by ship, but it had not been enough. "Any word from the other worlds?" he asked. "Sporadic signals from a few colony ships that escaped the outer systems. Maybe another 20 million survivors scattered across the galaxy." The communications officer paused. "Commander, that's less than 5% of our total population. 5%. The Kithaeron Consortium. 800 years of peaceful civilization reduced to desperate refugees fleeing through space." Zethkar closed his eyes and tried not to think about the billions of lives lost. "Sir," the tactical officer suddenly sat up straight. "I'm detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Zethkar's eyes snapped open. "Fourth reinforcements?" "No, sir, the energy signatures are completely different. These aren't bioships." The officer worked frantically at his console. "Sir, I'm reading. This can't be right." "What is it?" Zethkar demanded. "I'm showing 900 separate contacts. All artificial construction, all heavily armed." "Sir, someone just brought an entire fleet into our system." The main screen lit up with the tactical display, and Zethkar stared in disbelief. The new contacts were arranged in perfect military formation, their energy signatures blazing like small suns against the darkness of space. Each ship appeared to be bristling with weapon systems he didn't recognize. "Are they responding to our distress call?" he asked hopefully, before anyone could answer. The comm system crackled to life with an alien voice speaking in heavily accented, but understandable Kytheran. "Attention, alien vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Fleet. We received your request for military assistance. Please identify yourselves and provide tactical updates on enemy positions." Zethkar blinked in confusion. "Military assistance?" He looked at his communications officer, who shrugged helplessly. "Respond to them," he ordered. "Tell them we are the Kithaeron Consortium and we ask for sanctuary for refugees, not military intervention." The communications officer sent the message, but before they could receive a reply, the tactical display exploded with new activity. The human ships were moving, accelerating toward the Vorth fleet with terrifying speed. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, his voice filled with awe. "Those human ships are pulling acceleration forces that should liquefy any carbon-based crew. How are they surviving those G-forces?" Zethkar watched the display in fascination and growing horror. The human vessels weren't just moving fast. They were moving in attack formation, weapons charging, heading directly for the Vorth swarm that had just finished consuming his homeworld. "Are they insane?" he whispered. The lead human ships opened fire while still at extreme range, their weapons creating brilliant flashes of light across the tactical display. But instead of the careful, precise shots the Catharan were used to, the humans seemed to be firing everything they had in massive, overwhelming volleys. Sir, the humans are using kinetic weapons, plasma cannons, and some kind of explosive projectiles, the tactical officer reported. They're not even trying to be precise. They're just shooting everything. The Vorth, apparently as surprised as the Kytheran by this sudden arrival, began to respond. Their bioships turned toward the human fleet, launching clouds of organic fighters and charging their bioplasma weapons. What happened next defied everything Zethkar understood about space, combat. Instead of maintaining distance and engaging in careful tactical maneuvering, the human ships accelerated directly into the Vorth formation. Some of the smaller human vessels actually rammed Vorth bioships, their reinforced hulls tearing through the organic armor like it was made of soft tissue. They're ramming them, the tactical officer said in disbelief. The humans are actually ramming Vorth ships and their crews are cheering about it. Indeed, the communication channels were filled with human voices shouting things like, "For Earth," and "Take that, you ugly bug," in what sounded like celebration rather than fear. The comm system crackled again. "Kytheran vessels, this is Admiral Chen. We're engaging the hostile fleet now. Please maintain safe distance and prepare to assist with mop-up operations." Zethkar found his voice. "Admiral Chen, you don't understand. The Vorth have thousands of ships. Their biotechnology is beyond anything we've ever seen. You need to retreat immediately." There was a pause, then the human admiral's voice came back and Zethkar could swear she sounded amused. "Commander, we've got this situation under control. Just sit back and watch some good old-fashioned human problem-solving." On the tactical display, the battle was unlike anything in Catharan military history. The humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and sheer reckless aggression that seemed to confuse the Vorth as much as it did Zethkar. Human ships took damage that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. When one human destroyer lost its main engines, it used maneuvering thrusters to spin itself like a top while continuing to fire all weapons. When a Vorth bioship tried to board a human cruiser, the human crew apparently welcomed them aboard and then fought them hand-to-hand in the corridors. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "I'm picking up internal transmissions from the human ships. One of their Marines just reported securing the enemy boarding party and asked if anyone wanted alien steaks for dinner." Zethkar stared at the display. "Did he just say they captured Vorth boarders?" "Alive? It appears so, sir. The humans seem to be treating this as entertainment." The battle continued for 3 hours and slowly, impossibly, the Vorth began to retreat. Ships that had never known defeat were pulling back from the human onslaught, their formation breaking apart as individual bioships fled the system. "This is impossible," Zethkar murmured. "The Vorth don't retreat. They've never retreated." "Sir," the tactical officer said, "I think I know why. Look at these human ship specifications." A new display appeared showing the technical details of the human vessels. Zethkar read the data twice before he believed it. "These ships are built for radiation levels that would kill us in minutes," he said. "Their crew compartments are designed to withstand gravitational forces that would crush our bones. Their atmosphere is nearly 25% oxygen. That's almost explosive." "Sir," the communications officer added, "I've been analyzing their biological data. These humans evolved on a high-gravity, high-radiation world with extreme weather patterns and massive predators. According to this data, their entire planet is considered a death world by galactic standards." Zethkar looked back at the tactical display, where human ships were now pursuing fleeing Vorth vessels and destroying them with casual efficiency. "We sent a distress call to Deathworlders," he said quietly. "No wonder they thought we wanted military help. To them, this is probably just a normal Tuesday." The comm system activated again. "Kytheran Fleet, this is Admiral Chen. We've routed the hostile forces and are beginning pursuit operations. Are there any other Vorth concentrations in the area that need our attention?" Zethkar looked around his bridge at his crew, all of whom were staring at him expectantly. Finally, he activated the comm system. "Admiral Chen, this is Commander Zethkar. I believe there may have been some misunderstanding in our communications. We weren't requesting military intervention. We were asking for sanctuary for refugees." There was a long pause. Then Admiral Chen's voice came back and she definitely sounded confused. "Commander, You sent us detailed tactical data on enemy positions and requested immediate assistance against a hostile force. That sounded like a military request to us. We sent that information so you would know which areas to avoid, Zethkar explained. We thought you might offer our survivors a place to live. Another pause. Then impossibly, Admiral Chen began to laugh. Commander, you're telling me that you accidentally called the scariest military in local space because you wanted to file a refugee application? That appears to be correct, Admiral. Well, Chen replied, still chuckling. Lucky for you, we don't really do things halfway. How many refugees are we talking about? Zethkar looked at his refugee count. Approximately 80 million survivors scattered across multiple ships. 80 million, Chen mused. We can work with that. Consider yourselves under the protection of the United Earth Space Fleet, Commander. Anyone who wants to hurt your people will have to go through us first. As Zethkar watched human ships methodically hunting down the last Vorth vessels, he realized that perhaps sending an accidental distress call to Deathworlders had been the best mistake his people had ever made. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching her tactical display with satisfaction as the last Vorth ships fled the Kitharin system. But her satisfaction quickly turned to determination as new intelligence data streamed in from Kitharin sources. Admiral, Commander Park reported from his intelligence station, we're receiving updated information from the Kitharin about the scope of the Vorth threat. This isn't just an attack on one system. The Vorth have been consuming entire sectors of the galaxy. Chen studied the new star charts appearing on her display. Red zones marked Vorth-controlled space, and the pattern was disturbing. They're not just raiders. They're systematically exterminating every intelligent species they encounter. Dr. Kim looked up from her xenobiology station. Admiral, I've been analyzing the Vorth bioships we disabled. These aren't just living vessels, they're constantly growing, reproducing, adapting. Every world they consume makes them stronger. How many worlds are we talking about? Chen asked. Commander Zethkar's voice came through the comm system from his ship. Admiral Chen, our databases show the Vorth have consumed at least 47 inhabited systems in the past 2 years. Based on their expansion pattern, they're accelerating. Chen walked to the central holographic display, where a three-dimensional map showed the galaxy with Vorth expansion marked in pulsing red. If they continue at this rate, they'll reach the major galactic civilizations within 5 years. After that, they'll be unstoppable, Dr. Kim finished grimly. Each species they absorb gives them new biological adaptations. Eventually, they'll encounter something that makes them immune to our weapons. Chen nodded. Then we stop them here now, before they get any stronger. She turned to her communications officer. Send a message to Earth Command. Inform them we're extending our mission to eliminate the Vorth threat entirely. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes stepped forward from his position near the Marine deployment screens. Admiral, my troops are ready for extended operations, but we'll need more information about Vorth ship interiors if we're going to board them effectively. Commander Zethkar's voice came through the comm again. Colonel Hayes, I must warn you that Vorth bioships are extremely hostile environments. They maintain no atmosphere, generate intense radiation, and their internal gravity fields shift randomly. No biological creature should be able to survive inside them. Hayes grinned. Commander, you haven't met human Marines yet. Chen smiled at the colonel's confidence. Patch me through to the fleet, all ships. Admiral on fleet-wide, the communications officer announced. This is Admiral Chen to all vessels, she began. We came here to answer a distress call from the Kitharin Consortium. Mission accomplished. But intelligence indicates the Vorth threat extends far beyond this system. These creatures have been committing genocide across multiple sectors of the galaxy. She paused, looking around her bridge at the faces of her crew. I'm hereby expanding our mission parameters. We're not just rescuing the Kitharin anymore. We're eliminating the Vorth swarm entirely. Any ship that wants to return to Earth can do so now with my compliments and no questions asked. The communications officer waited several minutes, then reported, Admiral, all ships are reporting ready for extended operations. No request for return to Earth. Outstanding, Chen replied. Colonel Hayes, prepare your Marines for boarding operations. I want to know how these bioships work from the inside out. Over the next 6 hours, human forces began what would later be called the most comprehensive xenocide in galactic history. But to the Marines and crews involved, it felt more like an interesting training exercise. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez led her squad through the airlock of the captured Vorth bioship Devourer of Worlds. The ship's interior was exactly as bad as Commander Zethkar had warned. No atmosphere, radiation levels that would kill most species instantly, and gravity that seemed to change direction every few minutes. "Well, this is cozy," Rodriguez commented over the squad's comm system as they floated through a corridor that pulsed with organic growths. "Lopez, you getting readings on that biomatter?" Corporal Lopez scanned the walls with his instruments. "Sarge, this stuff is alive. I mean, really alive. It's trying to adapt to our presence. Look at this, the wall just grew something that looks like an air filter." "Cute," Rodriguez replied. "It's trying to make us comfortable. Too bad we don't need the help." She kicked off a wall and glided toward what appeared to be a central chamber. "Okoro, what's the radiation count?" "About 3,000 rems per hour, Sarge," Private Okoro reported cheerfully. "Lucky thing these new suits are rated for stellar core environments." 3,000 rems, Rodriguez mused. That would cook most aliens in about 10 minutes. No wonder they think their ships are safe. She landed near what appeared to be a control node. "Kim, can you interface with this thing?" Specialist Kim approached the organic console, which immediately began growing tendrils toward her suit. "It's trying to connect with me directly. Probably wants to assimilate my brain or something." She pulled out a standard interface probe. "Let's see how it likes human computer viruses instead." As Kim worked to hack the Vorth bioship's nervous system, Rodriguez's comm crackled with reports from other boarding teams throughout the fleet. "Team 3 here," came Lieutenant Parker's voice. "We've got the engine room secured. Turns out these bioships don't really have engineers. The entire propulsion system is just one giant organ. It's actually kind of gross." "Team 7 reporting," added Sergeant Chen. "We found what looks like a nursery. Thousands of baby Vorth in some kind of growth pods. They're actually kind of cute. In a nightmare fuel sort of way." Rodriguez shook her head. "Remember, people, these cute babies grow up to eat entire planets." "Mark those nurseries for termination." "Copy that, Sarge," came the reply. Specialist Kim suddenly looked up from her work. "Sarge, I'm in their system. This is incredible. The entire ship is basically one giant brain. It's been recording everything it's encountered, every species it's helped destroy." "Can you access their strategic data?" Rodriguez asked. "Already on it. Downloading their fleet positions, breeding worlds, strategic objectives. Sarge, there are thousands of these ships spread across dozens of systems. But I'm also seeing something else." "What?" "Panic," Kim replied with satisfaction. "The ship's biocomputer is absolutely terrified. It's broadcasting warnings to other Vorth about impossible biological entities that can survive in hard vacuum and ignore lethal radiation." Rodriguez grinned inside her helmet. "We're making quite an impression. Any way to use their communication system against them?" "Better than that," Kim said. "I can reprogram their biocomputers. Turn their own ships against them." "Do it," Rodriguez ordered. "And while you're at it, see if you can make them broadcast our location to every Vorth ship in the galaxy. Let them all know we're coming." While the Marines worked inside captured Vorth ships, the human fleet had spread out across multiple systems, hunting down Vorth concentrations with methodical efficiency. Admiral Chen had divided her forces into smaller task groups, each one capable of taking on Vorth fleets that had previously been unstoppable. Captain Martinez commanded Task Group 7, consisting of 50 ships and 5,000 Marines. His group had just entered the Xerion system, where Vorth forces were in the process of consuming the homeworld of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union. "Admiral Chen, this is Captain Martinez," he reported over long-range comm. "We've found a big one. Looks like about 300 Vorth bioships strip mining an entire planet. The local defense force is gone, but we're reading millions of life signs on the surface." Chen's voice crackled back through space. "Rules of engagement remain the same, Captain. Save who you can, destroy everything else." "Copy that, Admiral." Martinez out. He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the attack. All ships weapons free. Let's show these bugs what happens when they pick on someone our size." The battle for Xerion lasted 8 hours. By the end, the Vorth fleet was completely destroyed, and human Marines were on the surface evacuating survivors from a dozen different species. The rescued aliens watched in amazement as humans worked efficiently in radiation-soaked environments, lifted debris that should have required heavy machinery, and shrugged off injuries that would have been fatal to most species. Dr. Yenthal, a Xerion scientist, found herself being carried to safety by a human Marine who was treating a broken arm as a minor inconvenience. "How are you doing this?" she asked in amazement. "The radiation levels here should kill you in minutes." The Marine, whose name tag read Johnson, just grinned. "Ma'am, where I come from, this level of radiation is what we call a sunny day. You should see what we can do when we're really motivated." Similar scenes played out across dozens of systems as human task groups systematically dismantled the Vorth swarm. What had taken the Vorth years to build, the humans destroyed in weeks. But perhaps the most significant moment came when Sergeant Rodriguez, still working inside the captured bioship, managed to access the Vorth collective consciousness. "Admiral," she reported over the comm, "I've got access to their hive mind. They're not just terrified of us, they're confused. They literally cannot understand how we exist." "Explain," Chen replied. "Well, according to their collective memory, they've encountered thousands of species across the galaxy. Every single one followed the same pattern. They evolved on safe worlds, developed peaceful technologies, and fell easily to Vorth biowarfare. And we don't fit the pattern at all. They're calling us impossible biological entities because we thrive in environments that kill everything else they've encountered. They think we might be some kind of ancient weapon system left behind by a dead civilization." Chen chuckled. "Little do they know we're just getting started. Can you broadcast a message through their network?" "Yes, Admiral. What would you like to say?" Chen thought for a moment. "Tell them this, you picked the wrong species. We're humans, we're from Earth, and we're coming for all of you. Any Vorth who want to surrender can do so now. The rest of you have about 48 hours to make peace with whatever gods you believe in." As Rodriguez transmitted the message through the Vorth collective consciousness, every Vorth ship in the galaxy received the same terrifying realization. They had encountered something they had never faced before. A species that was more dangerous than they were. 3 months after the first battle in Kitharan space, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the Retribution, looking out at one of the most remarkable sights in galactic history. Floating in formation around her flagship were not just the 900 ships of the human fleet, but also vessels from 17 different alien species, all refugees that human forces had rescued from Vorth attacks. The Vorth swarm was finished. The last of their bioships had been destroyed 2 weeks ago in the Omega Nebula, their hive mind finally going silent after centuries of galactic terror, but the aftermath was proving far more interesting than the war itself. "Admiral," Dr. Kim announced from her station, "we've just received the final translation of the original Kitharan message, the one that started all this." Chen turned from the observation window. "Let me guess, we completely misunderstood what they were asking for." "That's an understatement," Dr. Kim replied, holding up her tablet. "They weren't requesting military intervention at all. They were asking if we might have room for refugees. The tactical data they included was meant to help us avoid dangerous areas, not attack them." Chen stared at the tablet for a moment, then began to laugh. "So you're telling me that we accidentally started an interstellar war because of a translation error?" "Technically," Dr. Kim said, "we accidentally started an interstellar war and then won it because of a translation error." Commander Zethkar's voice came through the comm system from his ship, the newly christened Second Dawn. "Admiral Chen, our cultural analysis teams have finished their preliminary reports on human Kitharan communication differences. The results are quite fascinating. Please, Commander, share your findings," Chen replied, still chuckling. "It appears that when peaceful species send distress calls, they typically include only requests for sanctuary and offers of cultural exchange. The concept of requesting military intervention from complete strangers is so foreign to most galactic civilizations that no one ever developed appropriate translation protocols for it." Chen nodded. "That makes sense. Most species probably wouldn't ask strangers to risk their lives in someone else's war." "Exactly," Zethkar continued. "But humans apparently consider accidentally starting an interstellar war to help refugees to be a reasonable foundation for diplomatic relations." "Commander," Chen replied, "where I come from, that's what we call Tuesday." The conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, who entered the observation deck carrying a data pad and grinning broadly. "Admiral, you need to see the final casualty reports," he announced. Chen took the pad and read through the numbers. After 3 months of combat across dozens of systems, fighting an enemy that had been considered unstoppable. Human losses were remarkably light. 47 ships damaged, 12 destroyed, and 832 human casualties. Yes, ma'am, Hayes confirmed. And most of those were accidents. Turns out fighting in environments designed to kill other species is relatively safe when you're nearly impossible to kill. Dr. Kim looked up from her station. Admiral, we've also received preliminary reports from the species we rescued. Their analysis of human capabilities is enlightening. How so? Well, the Zirian Collective has classified humans as Category 12 apex predators, apparently the highest threat rating in their system. The Vegan Republic wants to establish a formal military alliance and is offering us 3 systems in exchange for protection. And the Centauri Federation has submitted a request to have human observers present at all future diplomatic negotiations. Chen frowned. Observers? For what purpose? According to their message, Dr. Kim continued, they want to make sure that if anyone at the negotiating table is planning something aggressive, the humans find out about it first. They want us as galactic enforcers? Chen asked. Commander Zethkar's voice came through the comm again. Admiral, if I may, I believe the other species are simply recognizing what the Kithrin learned during our first encounter with humans. Which is? That humans are perhaps the only species in the galaxy who will show up uninvited to someone else's war and fight until they win, simply because they believe it's the right thing to do. Chen considered this for a moment. Commander, we only did what anyone should do when they see innocent people being threatened. And that, Admiral, is exactly what makes humans so remarkable. Most species would have calculated the risks, considered the political implications, and formed a committee to study the situation. Humans just showed up and started shooting, Hayes laughed. To be fair, Commander, we're really good at shooting. Indeed you are, Colonel, Zethkar replied. The Vorth had never encountered a species that considered ramming enemy ships with reinforced hulls to be a valid military tactic. Chen walked back to the observation window, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. So what happens now? We've got refugees from 17 different species. The galaxy apparently wants us to be their police force, and we still haven't figured out the basic cultural exchange protocols. Dr. Kim approached the window. Admiral, I've been analyzing the requests we've received from various species. It's not just military protection they want. They're asking for trade agreements, technology sharing, and mutual defense pacts. They want formal alliances. All of them? All of them. Admiral, we've accidentally become a major galactic power. Every species we rescued is offering us preferential treatment. The Kithrin have already proposed joint colonization of 12 systems. The Zirian Collective wants to share their industrial technology. The Vegan Republic is offering us access to their agricultural expertise. Chen thought about this. And what do they want in return? Protection, Dr. Kim replied simply. They want to know that if another threat like the Vorth appears, humans will show up and deal with it. That's a big responsibility, Chen mused. Commander Zethkar's voice came through the comm one more time. Admiral, if I may offer a Kitharan perspective, humans have already proven they will take on that responsibility whether anyone asks them to or not. The question is whether you're willing to make it official. Chen looked around the observation deck at her officers. These were people who had volunteered to cross interstellar space to fight aliens they'd never heard of, to save people they'd never met, simply because it seemed like the right thing to do. Dr. Kim, start drafting formal alliance proposals. Hayes, begin planning for expanded fleet operations, and someone get me a direct line to Earth Command. What are you going to tell them, Admiral? Dr. Kim asked. Chen smiled as she looked out at the alien ships flying in formation with human vessels. I'm going to tell them that humanity just became the galaxy's unofficial peacekeeping force, and we're going to need a bigger fleet. 6 months later, the Terra Kitharan Compact was signed in a ceremony aboard the Retribution. 17 species signed the agreement, establishing the first multi-species alliance in galactic history. The signing ceremony was broadcast across known space, and the translation protocols had been much improved since the original Kitharan distress call. Commander Zethkar, now promoted to Admiral of the Kitharan Defense Force, stood beside Admiral Chen as they watched the various alien ambassadors adding their signatures to the treaty. Admiral Chen, he said quietly, I have been wondering about something. When your fleet first arrived in our system, you could have simply destroyed the Vorth ships and left. Why did you stay to ensure our complete safety? Chen considered the question for a moment. Admiral Zethkar, humans have a saying. If you're going to do something, do it right. We didn't come all this way just to chase off some bullies. We came to solve the problem. And now? Zethkar asked. What does humanity plan to do with this new galactic alliance? Chen looked around the ceremony, watching humans and aliens working together to establish the framework for interstellar cooperation. Same thing we've always done, Admiral. Look for problems that need solving and then solve them. Zethkar made a sound that might have been Kithran laughter. Admiral, I believe the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. Admiral, Chen replied with a grin. That's what we're counting on. In his private log that night, Admiral Zethkar made one final entry about humanity's entrance into galactic politics. Personal note. Today I witnessed the signing of the Terra-Kitharan Compact, establishing the first multi-species alliance in recorded galactic history. The humans continued to amaze and terrify other species in equal measure. Ambassador Yethal from the Vegan Republic asked Admiral Chen what humanity's long-term goals were for the galaxy. Admiral Chen replied, peace, prosperity, and making sure nobody gets to commit genocide on our watch. When pressed for details about human expansion plans, she said, we'll figure it out as we go along. We usually do. I am beginning to understand that humans do not plan for galactic domination because they never needed to. They simply encounter problems and solve them, and if the solution happens to involve accidentally conquering half the galaxy, they consider that an acceptable outcome. The Kitharan are fortunate that when we sent our desperate plea for help into the void, it reached a species whose first instinct when encountering strangers in trouble is to ask, how can we help? Rather than what's in it for us. Though I must note that their second instinct appears to be, how many ships should we bring? And their third instinct is usually, probably not enough. Bring more ships. End log. As the celebration continued around him, Zethkar reflected that perhaps the best diplomatic mistakes were the ones that accidentally made the galaxy a safer place.